to the Equity and Inclusion Symposium. Before we begin, we have a few announcements.
Active Minds would like to invite you to a few different upcoming events. On Friday, November 11th, we'll have our regular lunch meeting, but also invite the community to a stress relief painting party from 3:45 to 4:45. Please RSVP with Ms. Crane to sign up, as we need to purchase supplies for the event.
Active Minds would also like to share information about the Out of Darkness Woodlands Walk, which is on November 5th. Out of Darkness is an organization sponsored by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Registration begins at 9 a.m. at Town Green Park, and the walk begins at 10 a.m. When you walk in the Out of Darkness walks, you join the effort with hundreds of thousands of other people to raise awareness and funds that allow American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to invest in new research, create educational programs, advocate for public policy, and support survivors of suicide loss. For more information, please see Ms. Crane or Ms. Donahue. And now I'd like to introduce Serena Beckler from SDC.
Hi everyone, I'm Serena Beckler, the chair of SDC, which is the Student Diversity Committee, and I'm here to introduce Dr. Karen Bradberry on behalf of SDC. She's an incredible speaker and she has done so much. I have this incredibly long list of achievements she has, and I showed it to her and she said, "Don't read this long list of achievements to students. Let it be personal." She worked with us for an hour and a half last night, and she has incredible insights, and she's really a wonderful speaker. And she is the Director of Equity and Inclusion at Green Hill School in Dallas, so kind of close to home. It's very similar to Cooper. So without further ado, here is Dr. Karen Bradberry.
That's an A. She gets an A for following directions to the T. So good morning. Good morning. I have a couple of messages from your friends at Green Hill. One is the football team says they will see you tomorrow. You don't have to really worry too much. They were beat. We lost to Cistercian last Friday, so when I left, they were a little down in the dumps. So it should be a good game tomorrow, is what I've heard. Assuming. We'll see. So no worries about that. Second message is from my fourth period narrative nonfiction class. They said thank you because I'm not there teaching. So they wanted me to make sure that I conveyed just how much they appreciate you taking me away. They are in the process of writing their This I Believe essays. So I believe that they probably, instead of using this day for writing, are probably somewhere doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Probably, more than likely. So, third message is from our diversity club that we have. We have a club called Another Perspective at Green Hill. And their message was really more to me, which was, Dr. Bradberry, behave. That's our sister school, so don't go down there and cut up with them. And I was like, I kind of want to be glad. I appreciate the compassion you're expressing for your Cooper Dragon brothers and sisters, but at the same point in time, I don't know if I should be offended that you think I would come down here and misbehave. So to that end, this is an interesting format, I think, for us because it's not your typical lecture. I'm so used to teaching at this period that this is exactly what I'm going to do, but don't worry, I will not make you write an essay, not today at least. But we will work together to really have a great, hopefully meaningful conversation around how do we build a more inclusive community here at Cooper. And I want to share the things that we've learned in trying to do that at Green Hill, because we're all in the same family, and we're all like-minded in that we are really creating the leaders of tomorrow. That's in case you haven't figured that out. Which reminds me, we had a great conversation last night. The first thing I asked the group was, what's your mission statement? And they all recited it, boom, just like that. It was just tripping off their tongues, like, oh, mission, we know that. We learned that a long time ago. And so I know if I asked this entire student body right now to recite the mission, right, you would be able to do that. Yes? What? Huh? What? Yes? That was supposed to be like a yes, a rousing yes, yes, yes we will. Maybe. Of course you will. No, there's no way. Of course, of course, of course. Okay, so first I'll turn this on. So just so you know, this is what we're going to talk about today, right? Is what do we do? What are the things that we can do here at our school communities to build a more inclusive community? And I know I don't have to put it up here, but I'm just gonna do it just because. I mean, I know already, because I was so impressed with the SDC group last night, that everyone in here is well aware that you have a mission statement that really supports building an inclusive community. Yes? Do you see the things in the mission statement that support building an inclusive community here at Cooper? So one of these lovely children is going to be a runner, because this is an interactive thing. You can raise your hand. He's going to bring the mic to you so you can point out maybe some words or some phrases. Or if you have a loud enough voice and you can project, you can just sort of yell it. But what are the things that are here in your mission statement that really support having this day, having this event? Free Chick-fil-A from the people who participate. Courtesy of your head of school, and oh look. So we're buying some Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, don't forget.
Diverse group of select students.
Okay, so there's one word right there. Or one phrase, thank you. A diverse group of select students. Free Chick-fil-A for you. Who else wants Chick-fil-A? Any more people for Chick-fil-A? Oh, great. Lots of Chick-fil-A. Buy lots of Chick-fil-A.
Caring environment.
Oh, bingo. Chick-fil-A sandwich for you. That's the number one. Get the tea. The sweet tea is the best. Anybody else for Chick? Okay.
Creative thinkers.
Creative thinkers. Awesome. We might as well just take the whole school to Chick-fil-A at this point, right?
Yes, please.
Responsible citizens and leaders.
Responsible 2 Chick-fil-A's. That's a double sandwich for you. And that ice cream cone. I like that. The ice cream cone. You get that as a bonus?
Lifetime learners.
And lifetime learners. Excellent. Ice cream cone for you too. The large. You can have the large. More? All the way across the back. Anyone? 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 So you have in your mission statement the very power that you need in order to engage in the work that you're engaging in. And that's an amazing thing, because I get a chance to work with schools a lot, and sometimes I don't find that, right? Sometimes the students are trying to do stuff, but there's really no oomph behind it to give them the power that they need to actually be able to do it. So congratulations. I want you to give yourselves a big round of applause. And I know if I went back like this and said, recite the mission statement, everybody in here could do it, correct? You could? No, you can't. But I bet that you could tell me keywords and phrases from your mission statement that support the work. Like, give me an example of one. Just yell it out. See, there you have it. Boom. Drop the mic. I'm done. Thank you. My work is done. See how easy that was? Because everything that we do around this work always starts with the mission. The mission is what drives the work that we're doing. So today, I was laughing with the group last night when I was telling them, I was like, yeah, when Miss Parks called, I was like, oh yeah, she's like, we're gonna do, the students wanna talk about privilege. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. Just jump right in the deep end, John Cooper. That's what I'm talking about. Because at Green Hill, this would take me a long time to get people comfortable with. So I'm saying that, full transparency, you are jumping in the deep end of equity and inclusion work by naming the one thing that most schools, I would say, get really nervous and anxious about. And so that's very impressive to me as an equity and inclusion practitioner. So this is going to be the work that we're going to focus on today. I'm going to name some things right off the bat so that you know the framework that I'm coming from, so that if you're kind of getting nervous, like, oh my gosh, really, privilege, that's what we're going to do, You don't have to get nervous. The reason is, I think I was telling your head of upper school that I think the privilege, the whole conversation around privilege, unfortunately, has sort of gotten a bad rap. Because most of the time when you hear about privilege, what do you hear? You hear white privilege, right? Now, I know you don't know this, but I'm not white. But I can imagine if it was black privilege, that I would be really like apprehensive if people always want to talk to me about black privilege. So I'm just being empathetic and saying, I can imagine that who wants to sit around and talk about white privilege? And so that's been really unfortunate for us in the work because it is a conversation that we need to have, but I think we've lost something by focusing on one small aspect of privilege. Because the reality is we all have privilege. Does that make sense to everybody? And so, you know, people get all hypersensitive when you focus in on one word, and instead of having conversations, you might end up having like arguments. We sort of did that a couple of years ago at Green Hill. And this is how we learned, you know what, maybe we just need to talk about privilege. Period, end of story, just privilege, right? And so this is the definition that I offer to you, that privilege is the gift of power. And you get it because you happen to belong to a certain group. Period. End of story. Drop the mic moment. Fall out of the chair moment. Or whatever that was. That's it. Done. That's it. Right? So there is not a single person in here who does not have privilege. And this is the reason why we purposefully don't talk about it in terms of white privilege. We talk about it in terms of privilege. And we talk about and focus more on the fact that this is actually an interesting gift that we are given depending on the group that we belong to. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? Because there is a test later. Just saying. Yes? Okay, so most people get into this thing about trying to value it. It's really not about being good or bad. It just is what it is. So don't even spend your time getting in the weeds on that. You're just going to get stuck and dirty. It is what it is. It's not that it's good or bad. Now, what you do with it could be good or bad, right? And this is where the problem comes in. And so today, what we're going to talk about is how do we take our privilege, the power, the gift of power that our privilege gives us, how do we then take that and then make the world a better place? How do we take that and make John Cooper a better community? Is that okay? Yes? Are y'all sleeping? Y'all are awfully quiet. Do we need to get up and dance or what? No. Okay, so if you don't get it, right, you should raise your hand and say, hey, Dr. B, I don't know what you're talking about, clarify, right? Okay, just making sure. So to that end, I'm going to talk about there's two levels that privilege will operate on. One of them is a systemic level, and one of them is the situational level. That conversation around white privilege has really been talking about it from the systemic level. At Green Hill, we talk about that as a precursor just to give some foundational knowledge, but we really spend more time, because we're building our community, talking about it on the situational level. So to that end, I want to just take a moment to explain that, and I promise that's about as much of the teaching, lecture-ish stuff that I will do. So systemically, this concept of privilege really focuses on the groups that you belong to from the perspective of groups that we typically talk about a lot. Like the census will go through and collect data on these groups. The acronym that we use is GRASS, like grass, green grass that grows. Grass, I have to say that. Yes, I know. This is Texas, I have to say that. So you will remember that acronym is gender, race, religion or spirituality, age, which is an A, ability, both mental and physical, right? Physical ability, sexuality, diversity. Used to be sexual orientation, but now we talk about that as being on a spectrum. So sexuality, diversity allows us to say that. Socioeconomic status, and then ethnicity. Because those are typically the things that you hear about systemically the most. Does that make sense to everybody? And I'm not going to get into systems theory because then we would all be asleep. So that's just an easy way to remember. What are those big 8 that we talk about most of the time when we're talking about systems and privilege that operates within systems? That's an easy acronym to remember that. Is that okay with everybody? Could you recite those if I take this off? Say something.
I can hear you.
Yes, you could? Okay, good. This is good. Here's the second piece of that. There are also, that's just the starter list. It's not all of them. There are other cultural identifiers is what the language that we use for these. For example, personality type. How many of you consider yourselves to be extroverts? Wait, raise your hands high. Okay, how many of you consider yourselves to be introverts? Wow, that's interesting. Which group do you think has the gift of power in the world, systemically? Extroverts or introverts? Extroverts. Did anybody speak up for the introverts? How do y'all know that? Wait, where's the microphone? How do you know that? I want to know. Wait, here we go. Okay. Chick-fil-A here too.
Last year we had to read a paper about it specifically.
Really? What was the paper?
Caring for your introvert. Yeah.
Caring for your introvert? Everybody in upper school had to read that paper?
Junior year.
Oh, the juniors? Aww. Hey, I would like to have a copy of that. That is really cool. And so let me ask this question. At Cooper, is there a bias for or against introverts, would you say? For? Just yell it out, yeah.
I'd say that it's more balanced than most places because teachers do oftentimes connect easier with students since there's that lower student-to-teacher ratio, which gives the introverts who don't necessarily feel comfortable presenting to an entire class or to a great assembly of people the ability to get their idea across in a way that would give them the opportunity to be heard.
Is that general feeling? Anybody got anything to add to that? I don't know, I'm just asking. Because I will say, at Green Hill, the students will tell you that we have a bias actually towards extroverts. When we look at things like who's elected for class officer, when we look at our graduation awards, and who do we traditionally give graduation awards to that out of the senior class, those tend to be kids who are the extroverted kids. And it's sort of been an interesting study for us because when we go back and look at their leadership and the things that they've done and we compare them to some of our quiet leaders, we really are kind of like scratching our heads like, how did we miss the quiet leader? Because if we stacked them up side by side, the quiet leader in some cases has done a heck of a lot more for the Green Hill community than the extroverted leader. Y'all don't have that though, right? That's just us. So, it's a Dallas thing, I guess. I don't know. Yes, I see a hand. Mm-hmm.
When you say bias, do you mean positive or negative bias? Because you can be biased towards a group and a positive, or like positive for that group. So when you say you're biased towards the introverts, does that mean you're supporting the introverts or you're against?
Right, so there's a preference for extroverts at Green Hill. Okay. There's a bias towards extroverts, which means it's against introverts. And the other piece of that is one that I can speak to personally. One of my favorite students, senior year, because I love my seniors, they start to tell you exactly what their experience has been like when the closer they get to graduation, the more truth they tell. And we had a senior who wrote a paper and suggested that all of the teachers at our school read the book Quiet. And she talked about how for her 13 years at Green Hill, she was just tired of getting comments where the teachers kept saying, she's such a wonderful, great student. It would be really great if she spoke up a little more in class. I would love to hear her voice and hear what she has to say. But I know that's just a Dallas thing. But it was a call to us, right? It made me have to step back and go, oh my gosh, how many times have I written that in a student's comment without knowing maybe that student is there and in the moment with me, but just processing internally as opposed to externally, because I'm an extrovert. And whatever you identify as, you tend to have a predilection toward people who are like you. Does that make sense? Right? So now I have to teach and be very much aware of my quiet students in the class and how they process, because I don't want them to feel excluded because I'm drawn to the extroverts in my class, if that makes any sense. Yes? Okay? So, to that end, so let me say, systemically, right, I can tell from your responses that you are very much in tune with the fact that there are certain groups, when we start looking at cultural identifiers, that are going to have the privilege or the power, the gift, the power, the privilege gives them, and then there are certain groups who obviously will not. I see a hand. Yes?
So, like, I'm on the yearbook committee, I'm the editor, and we always, like, if you look at all, like, the yearbooks, we usually, like, there's, like, this thing that we cover, like, the same people. Like, they're the extroverts. Like, those are the people that we usually get the pictures of, and there's the ones that are doing, like, the crazy things, the big things, and, like, one of our things this year is just, like, trying to get the introverts and trying to get those that do things, that have, like, extracurriculars and do other things that aren't usually the biggest things that we cover. And that I feel like that's very interesting when you talk about, like, bias towards extroverts, because that was something that we just brought up, like, the other day, is that we need to stop looking at the people that are the extroverts that we always cover and look more in depth to the introverts that have
That's awesome.
any extra things to do.
That's awesome. I'm going to take that back too, but I will give you credit for it. Doing an audit of your yearbook to see whose pictures pop up the most. That's absolutely brilliant. That's awesome. Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. Okay, so now, in thinking about that then, right? So this is where, you know, my heart gets a little sad because people don't want to talk about privilege, but it's so much deeper than we think when we just get bottlenecked by trying to talk about it in terms of white privilege. So I could talk about racial privilege, but what I tend to find with our students is that they are so far past that. They are really more concerned about things like senior privilege, for example, which has to do with age. Oh wait, I think I heard senior swag with that, and then I saw the rest of the underclassmen like, whatever. Is that what I just sensed? Yes? Wait, seniors, where are you? Wait, why do y'all have the seats up? Can y'all even see in the back? So, seriously? These are all seniors? I am so sorry. Underclassmen, my people. My people. Unbelievable. Really? All of these people are seniors? And y'all are freshmen over here? Freshmen are at the... Wow.
Yep.
Seniors get dismissed first? And y'all have a stage to walk out? We need a stage to... Look, you outnumber them. Do they pay more intuition than y'all? I'm trying to understand. I'm not going for that. And so, is this why they get to wear the sweatshirts with the colleges on them? But don't y'all want to go to college too? But why don't you get to wear the sweatshirts with the colleges? Am I raising trouble? Am I causing trouble?
Maybe.
Am I? So, let me get this straight. These people right here are all seniors. They said they work to, so y'all aren't working, is that the deal? They said they work to get to this point. Is this fair? Is this fair? You know what? I wish I could hear your world. We're just squirrels trying to get the.
I was just wondering if there's like a difference between like a reward versus a privilege to say, like a little like, oh, like you've made it, so maybe you deserve, or maybe like here's a little gift, you know, just like a little thing versus privilege, or like.
I'm thinking y'all are getting a gift.
Like reward versus, I don't know.
Well, so here's what happens to answer your question in all
We've
seriousness.
all sat back there, we've all moved up, and we've all looked forward to wearing college shirts, or we've all looked forward to sitting in the front, and just, I don't know
So
if that, did that
because
make
you
it-
were hazed, it's okay to haze them. I'm just kidding. There is no hazing in John Cooper. There's no hazing. Okay, look. Oh yes, a voice from the wilderness. Let me hear you.
Underclassmen represent, no. So I've been in Cooper for most of my life or whatever, but it's like, I don't consider myself being hazed as much as that they have special privileges. That's what makes senior year so unique, as well as the fact that you're getting out, you know? But like, you know, it's
You might want to get out of that section. I cannot guarantee your safety. Okay, so let's talk about this, because now we're talking about, now we have moved from, in certain instances, let me make this point. We're talking about systemic privilege, but actually we're talking about situational privilege, right? Here at John Cooper, you have a system in place that rewards, to your point, very well stated, I might add, the hard work of seniors, right? So yes, it is you do get rewards, right? Because you have the power. What is interesting about that is you also then have the power to decide how you would like to distribute your reward or share your reward. So has the senior class ever said, you know what, in order to welcome the new freshmen in, have you ever gone to the head of school or the head of upper school to say, let's make the new freshmen feel welcome? What we want to do is we want to let the freshmen sit down here for the first assembly of the... I'm trying. I tried. I'm sorry. But does that make sense? So you do get rewards, and this is the perfect segue, because this is about what do you do with the power that you get? What do you do with the gift of power that you get when you have the privilege? Yes? Are you a senior?
Freshman.
Oh, okay. Is that why they're making you work? They make freshmen work?
I can say that every class has its advantage and disadvantage. Freshmen, I don't know. Sophomore year, they are getting into the things that may be a little bit tougher. They have the advantage over the freshmen, being the first year of experience high school attend. And then junior year, they're the upperclassmen. But it's junior year at the John Cooper School. And senior year, they've gone through everything, and they're at the top of the chain. We're ready to go. That's kind of what.
You're so nice. Thank you. That's very nice. That's really, oh.
So I think the reason why we do have senior privilege is because the summer after junior year, you don't get that. You have to go visit colleges and you have to write essays, and so it's like you have no break. And so the whole senior year, we all get even less sleep. I mean, at Cooper, 8 hours is like a dream, but we all get less sleep. We're so tired from everything. And like, just having like tiny things to look forward to just makes it easier to get up in the morning. I don't know, it's just something about coming to school.
Okay. So y'all aren't working? Y'all are sleeping 8 to 10 hours, freshman, sophomore? Capture all of this, because I want to play with this some more, because it's getting really fun for me. I'm going to get on a plane and go back to Dallas. So what I hear you saying is, right, there are, in this situation, right, there are different levels of privilege, of power that come with going higher and higher. Does that make sense? You know, freshmen, well, we didn't know about freshmen, but sophomores, you get some perk and blah, 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 right? And then there was a nice rationale for seniors. It was just exactly what my seniors tell me all the time. We're working so hard and da 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 da. And you guys are working hard and you are sleeping probably about the same number of hours, but you're not getting out early and you don't get to wear the sweatshirts. But it's coming. It's coming your way. So here's the big picture, right? If you asked me, if you said, hey, Dr. B, so what kind of privilege is that from a systemic standpoint? I would say that that's a privilege that has to do with the cultural identifier around age, right? Because in our society, right, there is a bandwidth in terms of age that really is holding a lot of the power. And when I do this with students, they know this just clearly, because our students, unfortunately, from an age perspective, you systemically don't have the privilege and the power. You're not going to get that until you're in your 50s, really, right? You're going to have to prove yourself to this conversation that we're having here. You're going to have to do something. And then you know what's going to happen when you get past 60, when you get to 65? Guess what's going to happen to it? You're going to lose it again. Because as you get older, right, you're going to become what we call the subordinate group instead of the dominant group. That's why my grandfather, around about like the third grade, we were like, that's it, Grandpa, no more driving. Give me the keys, right? And that's why the insurance rates, if we talk about systemic privilege, the insurance rates are ridiculously high for you now. They will go down for you as you get older. And then as you get older, they're going to go back up again. And you can see your teachers nodding their heads, so you can trust us on that. It's coming, right? And so the bigger conversation really is, so what do we do when we actually are in a situation where we have the privilege, we have the gift of power? What can we do with that in order to make the world a better place? What can we do with that in order to make Cooper a better place? That's what I want to do. So I want to pause right here, though. Some of you, under your seat, there is an orange sticky. If you can check, there should be 10 of you. If you will grab that sticky and bring it to me, I just want to pause and do a little test right quick. Y'all give them a hand. I hope these are the smartest kids at Cooper. There should be 10 people coming my way. Maybe the sticky fell on the floor. Some stickies have an X. Some of them are just orange. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Come on. Especially if you're sitting in seat like 105 or something like that, or 5. Back here. Look on the floor. Look around. There's some seniors. Bring all that senior privilege up here to the stage. Come on. You can come. We'll take another seat. Come on, come on. Come on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more. Oh, 10. Here we go. Y'all give him a round of applause. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to just take a moment, if we can, just a little time out here, because you did tell me you could do the power flower, right? Wait. Come back. Yes, Dr. B, we can do it. Okay, so here's what I thought we would do then. Are y'all looking at it? Stop that. I believe in them. Wait, where are the seniors in this bunch? I didn't know that y'all had the I did not know. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, just for a quick minute. So we're gonna take a pause. If you have an X, move that way. If you don't have an X, move that way. If you don't have a paper? Oh. Oh, there we go. It probably has nothing, right? Perfect. You're fine. No, you can be right here. So we have 5 people over here, 5 people over here. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Just humor me, the teacher in me has to always stop and check for understanding. So what I'm gonna ask them to do, if it's okay, is I'm gonna give them 60 seconds, well, from the time it takes us to sing the Jeopardy song, to recreate the power flower with as many cultural identifiers as you can think of. Remember grass, we talked about that. We talked about things like personality. There's other things. What are some other things they could include? Like citizenship might be one, yes? Because if you're a citizen, you definitely have privilege, you have the gift of power, right? What else? Anything else you can think of? Right hand, left hand, right. So I asked the group last night if you actually have, who's left-handed in here? Have you ever had that moment where you're sitting in a right-handed desk and your arm starts to cramp or your hand starts to cramp because it's so uncomfortable for you? I see some head nods. Do we have left-handed desks? I'm just curious at Cooper. Greenhill has like 5. That's it. And they're broken. So I get that all the time from our students. Sorry, left-handed people. The world is obviously biased towards right-handed people, right? Okay, so you guys, you have as much, you can come up with as much as you possibly can think of, right? Okay, so, and because we're independent schools, of course, this is a competition. So, we're adding the competitive element to it. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna give you all the materials that you need. We got lots of brain power up here. I see lots of seniors, so I'm feeling pretty good about what's gonna happen here. And when I say go, you are to recreate that flower with the petals, right? And write in there as many cultural identifiers, forms of privilege that you can think of, right? Does that make sense? Everybody understand? Okay. And so here, we'll just use this. So let's put the X's back here. Not that I think you would cheat, but you know. Y'all come on to the back. I know it's a little dark, but it should be okay. You could probably, you can make it out. And so, when don't open your bag of markers, these are all dry erase markers. When I say go, work together, right? Figure out a team strategy to work together because you want to recreate the flower and put as many as you possibly can put here, okay? Y'all got that? Okay, you might want to work. They're already strategizing back here. Like everybody already has a marker and everything. Hold on, little cheating. Stop, people. Oh, they said they paid attention. Interesting. Are y'all ready? You can keep it. Are y'all ready? This is some good strategizing going on up here. We could be here a while. I like this. Are you ready? Do the petals. I want to see the actual flower, right? And it's not about your artistic talent at all. It's just memory, right? Okay. On your mark. Are you ready? Everybody? Everybody get to the board because it's a team effort here. Okay? So, when I say go, you're gonna go. Okay, so, and I tell you what, why don't we I'm gonna add one dynamic. Use as many colors as you possibly can use. I'll double the points. So 1 point for each cultural identifier and 1 for each color. Just make sure you use them all, okay? Got it? Okay, go. And we're singing. just for a week. Can I do that? Whichever team wins gets senior privileges for a week. 10 more seconds. This is really great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Step away from the board. Back up. Go back over that way. Y'all come out. It's a chrysanthemum, is that what? Okay. So, let's see here. We'll look at one side and then we'll look at the other. Can everybody see this? Everybody in a position to see this? All right. And we won't take off for spelling. I'll say that. Okay, so here we have, oh look, they even put a smiley face in the middle of it. Y'all give them a hand, that's awesome. Okay, so here's what we have. They have age, yes. You're keeping points. So there's 1, they have race, that's 2. Handedness, excellent. 3, ethnicity, 4, height, yeah, that's 1. 5, citizenship, 6. Is this military? Very, I like that. Okay, 7. Police. Not really sure about that one. Just put a question mark there. Religion, I will give 8. Gender, 9. Socioeconomic status, 10. And sexuality, 11. Yes? Good? Are we okay with 11 points for this team?
Colors.
Oh, they said they got double for colors. So technically you have 22. Okay, 22. All right. I'm sorry, what? What are you saying? It's beautiful, right? It is, it's beautiful. It's unique, it is unique. Creative, critical and creative, that's some critical and creative thinking right there. Okay, so let's count, because there's a lot here. We have ethnicity, that's 1. Education, that's 2. IQ probably is more there, but I like the thinking, but let's go with 2. Creed, I don't know, we put a question mark there. Socioeconomic status, yes. 3, yes. Height, 4, yes. Personality, 5. Nice. Family size and family structure, 6. That's awesome. Accent, that's great. 7, am I at 7 yet? Okay, that's 7. Religion is 8. What does that say? Oh, right hand, so handedness, that's 9. Awesome. Education, like education level or type, right? Public school, private school? Oh, you already have that. Oh, okay, so I'm at 9? I'm at 9? Okay, sexuality, diversity, that's 10. Ooh, it's getting tight here. Ability, that's 11. Citizenship is 12. Gender is 13.
EQ, emotional.
That's beautiful. The emotional quotient, right? So yeah, I could go for that one. So what am I at? 13? This is 13. Did I do race? So 14, and nationality is 15. Look at this. Isn't this amazing? But who won? Wait, which team? Okay, so here's a question. Wait, is there a question from the audience? It's coming. The microphone is coming. Here's a question from this is Team X, right? Okay, so let's get the question first.
We had 2 colors and they had 4. We had 2. So, I just wanted to ask if that was a question of privilege.
What? That you have colors?
We were only given 2 and they were given 4.
Okay.
Even though we had more
Okay, so if I understand, what you're saying is you actually have more of the categories here, but you're not going to get the week of senior privileges as promised. They are. And your question is that fair, or if you doubled yours, you would have had 30. Oh, if they had the same colors, they would have had 30. So, I love John Cooper. So yes, it's a lesson in privilege, right? Now, think about the initial definition that we talked about. What we said was, it is what it is, right? It's what you do with it that ends up starting to get a little sticky, right? So this is one of the lessons that we talked about when we look at privilege. Random, just sticking sticky notes on the bottom of a chair, some with an X, some without an X, so it was just a matter of who sat down where, right? That grouped you. So we have the X group over here, and we have the other group over here, and then it was just a matter of who got which bag of markers, right? And you both had the same assignment that you were supposed to do, but because one group didn't have the privilege of having a whole bunch of colors, right? You're not gonna win this race. As hard as you might try, even though you have more stuff here, you're not gonna win this race. And that's unfortunate because you actually have more stuff, and I would say you've actually probably, no offense, come up with really cool things that really demonstrate your understanding of, how this stuff works. But unfortunately, you're not gonna get rewarded for it because of the system that I put in place when I said double points for the colors. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? I see a hand way in the back.
Sorry. Also regarding the reward of senior privilege, I would like to point out the fact that there are no freshmen up there.
Yep.
So
That's awesome.
do what you will with that.
You want to know why? Because we tend to, or I'll speak from the eye perspective since I did this, you're way up there. I wasn't going to walk way up there because over there. But when you think about that, as a teacher, I have to think about how much time I spend talking to the kids who are right in the front of me versus moving around my classroom and talking to the kids who are seated in the back of the room, right? Think about that, right? The other piece to this is we look at things like, sometimes my students will come and say, so wait, I want to see what the rubric is, Dr. B, because, I don't have color ink. We just ran out. Or, Green Hill shuts down the color. We don't let our students print from the color printer because they print everything in color. And it costs too much. So when I'm doing a grading assignment, I just don't worry about color. Just everybody level playing field, right? We have to work to do that. I have to say, as a person who has that power, I need to make sure that I'm creating an equitable opportunity for both of these teams to be successful, right? So either I have to change the rules of the game, or I have to make sure that I give them, I'm gonna have to have them share, which I know they would because they're very nice people, their markers with this team. And then we could all have a week of senior privileges. Yes? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so the biggest picture, and thank you to y'all, thank you. This is all beautiful. Absolutely. So, see your head of school for all your prizes that he's giving you. New cars and all that good stuff. Free parking spaces, all that stuff. Sophomores, you get to park, y'all don't do parking spaces by class, do you?
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna get past that. I'm not gonna even go there. So what is the point? So everybody's like, well, Dr. Bradberry, what's the point? Typically when we do this assignment, what will sometimes happen is, more often than not, the students are so excited about whatever gift I've thrown at them that they never stop to pay attention to the other teams, to even notice that the other teams only have a blue and a black marker. And so it brings us around to this whole conversation around what can we do with our privilege and power when we find ourselves in in a situation where we have the privilege and the power, what can we do with it so that people don't feel excluded, so that people don't feel disrespected, or so that people aren't shamed even, right? Because the reality is this is really an awesome, this is more stuff than I even talked about that they were able to produce. And so the charge to you is, sure, there's stuff in the system that is flawed, right? That's giving a reward to one group over another group. But just as you heard from your yearbook editor, you have the power to be able to look at that and to say, well, wait a minute, are we really being fair? Is that really what we want for our community? And, you know, if the answer is like, no, we're missing some people or we've left out some people, what can we do about it? Okay? And I have to say this too, it doesn't mean that you're always gonna fix it. But as I said to the group last night, sometimes the process is the product. The fact that you're aware of it is huge as far as cultural competency goes. The fact that you see it, that's huge. The fact that you are motivated to do something about it, that you have that empathy, and you want to move on that, you want to show some compassion, that's huge. And that very much aligns with what you say in your mission. Does everybody agree with that? Has anybody ever thought about that before? Like that? I'm just curious. Have you ever noticed things like that? Like I walked in last night and I was like, one of the questions I asked Ms. Parks is like, who gets the lockers that are the full lockers? Because some of them are like half lockers and some of them are full lockers. I don't know, I just noticed it. Because I like the decorations on the lockers. I'm just pointing things, I'm just saying, right? So when we talk about privilege, we are talking about the fact that we are all going to find ourselves in a position of privilege. The question that we have for you is, what are you going to do with that privilege, right? Is this kid in here? Did he graduate 2 years ago? Because I wanted to play basketball. My dad was a coach, but he told me no, I needed to twirl my baton because I have no athletic ability whatsoever. So in that situation, he's going to have the privilege, I'm not, right? Does that make sense? And this is huge for us. We see it a lot with our middle school students in terms of athletic ability, right? That there tends to be, for social standing, and this is not an upper school thing, but definitely a middle school thing, I would say. For social standing with our middle school students, for example, the athletes, they got the swag at our school. Right? Compared to like our gamers or our non-athletes, right? Our kids who are in the arts, for example. There's a difference that we have. That, I know that doesn't happen here. That's just Greenville. I'm just saying. Wait, what? What are you saying? No? I know. It's just us. I know. I'm just saying. In this instance, are these singers here? Yes? They're theater kids? They graduated? Okay. So in this instance, and a lot of the things that we talk about with our upper school students are the arts, the athletics, and the academics. And the students are always reminding me when they see inequity, right? So, for example, when we have our fine arts assembly, awards assembly, it is during the day, mandatory, everybody goes. We all go and we celebrate the wonderful things that our students have done. What our athletes, interestingly, said to us was, how come we stopped the whole school day to do the fine arts assembly, awards assembly, we stopped to do the academic awards assembly, but for athletics, we have to meet on Sunday at a banquet that we have to pay for. And people, you know, only the athletes go. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And we have pet rallies. Why did you ask me that? Well, so wait, let's clarify that, right? So now we're talking about situational privilege. We have pet rallies during football season. And I think we have one during the winter season. Is that what you're asking?
We have a pep rally for everything.
So why did you ask that? Oh, I see what you're saying. Right, okay, I got you. Oh yeah, we don't have pet rallies for fine arts. But So when we line up our award ceremonies, right, what we saw in our practice was that there was a difference in the way that we were awarding one group as opposed to the other groups. Does that make sense? Yes? And if I did pep rallies, there would be a difference. The tennis people would say, how come we never have pep rallies for us? The swimmers would say, how come we never have pep rallies? I don't know. That's just I know, it doesn't happen here. It's just a weird Green Hill thing, right? So in this picture, are these students here? Yes? Did I hear yes? Wave at me. Oh, yay. So yes, just one? That's it? Oh, that's awesome. So we talked, I was sharing with the group last night that my son, who's in his freshman year, tore his ACL and meniscus 3 days before he's supposed to start as a freshman in his first college football game, and had to have surgery, and we're doing rehab and all of that. And I was telling them, I was like, so now I have this hyper awareness around the privilege of being an ambulatory person, because I've had to watch him on his crutches navigate spaces that were, he's already slipped on the crutch and stepped on the knee and messed it up again because of the way that, the hotel was aligned and things like that. I talked to them about, he was so frustrated when he flew home because he was almost going to miss his flight, because if you and some of you I know have probably been through this, the process of going through security took like an extra 45 minutes. Because they got to put the crutches through security. And the knee brace that wasn't supposed to come off the leg had to come off the leg, and it had to go through security. And it was supposed to always stay elevated, but you don't get that, because security is not really made for people who are non-ambulatory. Security checkpoints are made for people who can walk through. Would we agree? Who can walk right through. Has anybody ever had that experience in here? Going through security for whatever reason? I see some hands. Was it because of crutches or an injury? Or what do you think it was? Mm-hmm. Oh, your arm. Right. And so if you're thinking about that, I never thought about that. I know what my timing is to get to the airport, to give myself enough time to make sure I don't miss the plane. But now that I'm dealing with him and his, I now have a completely different perspective about that, for what that's like. So now when I see people who are getting assistance at airports, I don't just see them, I really see them. Does that make sense? Usually I'm annoyed because they're slowing me down, trying to get to my gate. But now I have a completely different appreciation for the fact that that system is not really built for them. Yes, I see a hand.
Playing devil's advocate here, could that be because disabled people of lower ability or lower mobility aren't the primary demographic of air travel, that they're the minority and not the exception, but they're the exception, not the majority?
Mm-hmm. So wait, ask your question again.
That they're not tailor-made for people of lower mobility, of disabled mobility, because they're the exception and not the rule.
Does everybody understand? So in that system, when we're talking about systems, the airport system is made for people who are mobile, who can get from point A to point B. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's absolutely right. What it does to people, especially people who are usually able-bodied like my son, but are temporarily disabled, is it makes him very stressed out, very angry, very hurt. He feels disrespected. He thought he got completely felt up by the people, because it was a whole different process of, checking him out. And he came home very frustrated. And what I said to him was, well, thank God you're going to be able to walk again. It's reminding me of, what it was like for our grandma, who never said a thing about it, and that was her existence. Or for my friend who is paraplegic, and that is his existence. Does that make sense to everybody? And so when our schools are talking about core principles of things like honor and respect and compassion and empathy, this is why we talk about those things. Because, you know, most of the time we become aware of privilege when we find ourselves in that position where we don't have the privilege that we're so used to having, and it triggers that in us. But you're so fortunate to be able to sit and talk about it today without having to have something traumatic like that happen. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? I see a hand.
I was wondering, how did you know that, this is from a while ago, but how did you know that activity was going to work? Like, how did you know that the people with the black and blue pens had more items? Did you pre-plan it? Or?
You want the secret. Okay, so the teacher's secret is typically when you add the color factor in, the kids lose time trying to count the colors to make sure they get the double points on the colors. The kids who only have 2 colors are just trying to get as many words as they can possibly get. Does that make sense to everybody? So things that we think are supposed to be great and wonderful and pretty sometimes actually serve as a distraction and detract from what we're initially trying to do. Another hand? Another thought? Okay, so when I was looking at the website, as usually I just look at websites to get a sense of what, you know, of the school and of the school community. And so when I saw this one, that's what I thought about. I was like, wow. Because my son with ACL, his ACL, and they had to take out the majority of his meniscus, unfortunately. He's out for the season. He's got he went from being a starter to now being a redshirt freshman, right? And so when I saw this, I thought, oh, because he's just up and down, you know, his spirits are up and down. And he runs track too, so I was like, okay, when track season comes, we're gonna be in one of these low moments again, whereas these kids never even think about that. I never think about that, right? So another cool thing I found, what kind of privilege, because I was like, this is really cool, I see you using your powers for good. What kind of privilege are you using? What kind of power here are you using to make the community better? Right, your socioeconomic power. What other kinds of power? Time, mobility, strength. So all that physical ability, right? I would wager your age, right? So I see it, which is very exciting. That makes this presentation really easy for me. It's always hard when I go into schools that aren't already using their power for good. But it was really rewarding for me to spend time just from your website before I ever even got to your campus, understanding, wow, these students at Cooper, the Cooper community is really committed to using its power to make the world a better place. You should give yourselves a hand because I don't find that often. So then the question becomes, so what do we do with this? And again, as I just said, you make it really easy because when I bring, you know, the power that I have as an ambulatory person, and when you bring the power that you have as a citizen, and when this person brings the power that he has as a young person who's full of energy and strength, we can actually go build houses for people who don't have homes. Right? We can actually go and march on behalf of people who might be getting deported out of our country, for our classmates who might be getting deported. We can go down to our police station and stand in solidarity for Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. I'm thinking about some of the things that our students have done as we talk about, well, because the question is always like, well, what can we do? What can we do? We can also do things in our own community, right? We can look and say, wait a minute, are we only featuring extroverted people in our yearbook? That's brilliant. We can say, hey, you know what would be really cool as a gift from the senior class? We could just show compassion and actually go make an appeal to maybe let somebody else sit down front. I'm just saying. You could. You could. Poor little freshman. Who is that way in the back? Are this freshman way in the very back?
Yes.
Yes? What do y'all do back there? Go to sleep? Do you like being back there? No. Would you like it if the seniors just once said, hey, maybe at the start of the year, y'all can sit down front? Yes. It's kind of like a yes and a no. I think I'm kind of seeing what the perks of being in the back row might be. I guess it would depend on what was happening on the stage, right? That's all I'm saying, right? So let me close, because I know we want to go. We're going to break for lunch, and then we're going to do a little bit more of this work after lunch. I'm just curious, if, as you're thinking through things, is there something that is so like heavy for you right now that you're like, it would be so cool if we could talk about this type of situational privilege or systemic privilege that I see here at John Cooper? Yes? Because, no? Anybody? Anyone? So y'all are all good?
I'll run to you if you want.
Look, okay, I see a hand. Because I can stir some stuff up, obviously. Like in sports teams, who's the privileged sports team? Don't say it. I said, don't say it. Don't say it.
Okay, so you could either talk about socioeconomic privilege, or you could talk about like gender privilege, like you mentioned the athletics, how like sometimes the guys' sports get more support than the girls' sports do.
Hypothetically, it doesn't happen.
It's true. So
it's hypothetical. It doesn't happen here. Okay, so we can talk about gender, right? Systemically, males are in the dominant group. So we can look at things from a gender standpoint. I'll tell you an interesting thing we have at Green Hill. Situationally, our boys are probably in the subordinate group at Green Hill. And it has a lot to do with the fact that many of our teachers are female, and we like girls who are neat writers and very organized, and they write like 15,000 pages when you only wanted 5. And so that's something that our boys have brought to my attention. I don't know if that's the same thing here, right? But it just depends, because depending on your situation, it could change. Systemically, the big map of the United States is going to be that men are in the privileged group. Does that make sense? But you might see some situational privilege here.
Okay, so like going back to that sports thing, so I'm on the girls soccer team, and like I know it's cold, but if you look into our stands, there's like 5 people there, and they're like all parents. And then you go to the girls volleyball games, and we're literally on the court, like cheering. And then we also have this thing called Spirit Week, which is in January during soccer season. It's like this huge event. All the grades like compete against each other, and you get extra points for going to the games. So there's one game that we get during Spirit Week where people actually show up. And then you get to spring season, and there's softball, and like softball, which I don't play, but I've noticed that like is the same thing, and track and swimming, and it goes on.
So you see it.
There's jackets,
right? So you see it. These are excellent points, right? So then I guess the question would be, oh boy, and now the hands are really racing, and it's time to go. Oh wow. Nothing like sports to get us talking. Yes.
So kind of regarding this team thing, like people coming together with their different privileges, working for a common goal. An issue here at Cooper. So our improv club is pretty small. And just recently, we've had some location issues because in past years we were allowed to hold meetings in here in the black box, which is just next door. But now we can't because we have been evicted because because, well, I think there's multiple reasons, but one of them is that teachers who have the privilege to let us be in here don't want to stay here that long. And like also, since we're a smaller group, our meeting times are kind of less prioritized, so.
Okay, one more, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. Or, no, there's like hands popping up everywhere.
I think that the girls' volleyball team has more support than like any other sport because more fans come out to like every game.
Interesting. So the question, okay, you can clap for that. So the question would be then, though, I guess, so this is a good, go to, I didn't even have to write case studies. This is a good go to lunch question, because the question, the admin's gonna put that back on y'all. What can you do? I mean, if you're acknowledging this and you're saying, hey, we want all of our teams to feel the same type of support, right? I mean, most of the time people are like, oh, Dr. Bradberry, this, and I'm like, well, you're the students. You guys need to come together and bring us a plan that will work, that's sustainable, that's reasonable, that we can put in place. So it's never, we all want to work together to make sure that, everybody in the community feels included and respected. So some of it is just as simple as sitting down and acknowledging it and then talking about it. That's all.
We have one more, just quickly.
Yes.
Adding to what you said about including everyone in the community, I'm new here and I felt really welcomed. But when I first got here, walking through the halls, people thought that I was a 10th grader, so everyone would smile at me in the halls. And when it settled in that I was a freshman, I got people started kind of ignoring me. And why? Walking through the hallway, I'm really short, so I get bumped by backpacks all the time. And I just want to bring that to attention that just because we're short and we're freshmen doesn't mean we don't have feelings. So maybe.
Let's end this in a work mode, right? Because the beautiful thing about, I think the blessing that we have in our independent schools is that we as a community get to decide what is good and right for our community, right? The fact that you have a mission that grounds us all, that says we're all in this together. We want to take care of each other, right? We want to take care of each other. We want to be respectful and kind of each other, right? We want to see each other. We want to see the gifts, the unique gifts, as somebody said up here. We want to see the unique gifts that every person at John Cooper brings. And we want to be respectful of that. So the same thing that we say at Green Hills, we have to work on that. We have to acknowledge it, we have to see it, we have to acknowledge it, and then we have to decide what's a great way for us to work together on that. And we have to do everything that we can do to make sure that at the end of the day, we are being the best John Cooper dragon that we can be, or the best Green Hill Hornet that we can be. So I say that all the time at Green Hill, it's this is not about St. John's or Episcopal or St. Mark's or Hockaday. This is, are we being the best Green Hill that we can be? So that's my challenge to you as it relates to privilege and power is, are you using your privilege and the gift of power that comes with it to be the best John Cooper upper school, whole school community that you can be? And find ways that, when you're seeing that you're not, find ways of turning that around to do that for others, to do that for people who don't have that power or that privilege, right? For as corny as that might sound to the seniors, I mean, you don't have to give them your seats, but at least acknowledge the fact that, hey, we know what it's like to be in the back. Sometimes that goes, or just stop hitting short people with your backpack. See how easy that was? It was just that easy. So, on that note, And I know I still have like about 15 more people who want to talk about something. Beautiful thing is that when we go into breakout session after lunch, you will create the time and the space for you to be able to raise those issues. And I have it on good authority that SDC, this is not a one and done. This is actually the beginning of great work towards making our John Cooper as inclusive as it can be. Is that okay? Yes? Anybody got any questions? Anything? Anybody hungry? Well, let's go get some Chick-fil-A. Awesome. So we have time for a little bit of a report out and a little bit of a sending forth, if you will. I'll start by talking about why this work is so important. Well, actually, I'll start by, let's give a round of applause to SDC for their making. I'm hoping to get one of those cool blue shirts. Hint, hint. One of my favorite students in the whole wide world found out, unfortunately, that she had cancer towards the end of her years at Green Hill. And it was really interesting because the cancer was located in her foot. And as part of her treatment process, they had to amputate part of her foot. And so people say, you know, privilege is so difficult, Dr. Bradberry, to talk about, and most teenagers don't want to sit around and talk about privilege. You know, why would you even agree to get on a plane and come to Houston and talk about it? Because I was so impressed that the John Cooper School has the level of compassion and maturity and empathy that you have a mission statement that says, even though we know most students don't want to sit around and talk about privilege, we here at the John Cooper School, we recognize how important it is that we educate ourselves on this. And so I was thinking about her as I was watching the breakout sessions and working with my own group, and my heart was just overflowing with joy. I think she would be very happy. The lesson that I learned from her in the process of her battle with cancer, and she's fine now, by the way, just in case, so we won't do tears or anything like that, but was at Green Hill, we had done a huge fundraising. We were building buildings and all that sort of stuff, and we have this amazing quad where we had literally flown in like such and such type buffalo grass, and you know, it looks very much like the nature that we were trying to create, you know, to really make our community feel like a real community. And so we had gravel and rocks and just natural paths that lead from our upper school building up to the dining hall. And I thought, you know, once we found out that Lori was going to have her foot amputated, part of her foot amputated, the advisors and I, we all went into action to try to really look at, let's make sure that, you know, Lori, who's been here with us since pre-K, we want to make this the easiest transition in her life's journey as we could possibly make it. Does that make sense to everybody? And so, because I mean, she was just that student that everybody just loved her. I mean, she was amazing, and so we were all heartbroken that this was part of her life's journey. We wanted to really, you know, live our mission and core principles. And in the process, one of the things that we discovered, because we knew that she was going to have difficulty walking for a while, obviously, was that we had not created a ramp to go from the upper school into the dining hall, which was literally maybe 20 feet away. We had, you know, we were ADA compliant because we did have ramps. We just didn't have a ramp for that 20 steps. We had a step up, and then we had like a gravelly path that our landscape architects had built. But it wasn't going to work for a student who was, you know, facing chemo 4 times a week, who had just lost part of her foot to cancer. And I'll never forget that moment, because that was a real awakening for me and the students at Green Hill around privilege that we don't even think about that we have. And, I shared with the student facilitators as they were anxious about, what your reaction was going to be. I have assured them that, your community is a very special community because you're having conversations that schools just will not have. And that says a lot about how much you care and you're concerned about each other. And I was telling them, I was like, sometimes people don't get this work until either they themselves have that moment or until a person who's close to them has the moment and they can experience it vicariously through them. And so my first real sort of battle and struggle with this disease called cancer really came from watching somebody that I knew as a 7th grader when I had her in my 7th grade advisory really face death head on and overcome it. And so when you think about it, it was a moment of clarity for me because I thought, wow, we've spent millions of dollars on this beautiful architecture and isn't it wonderful and beautiful on our campus? But in that moment for Lori, it wasn't wonderful and beautiful. It was another obstacle for her to overcome. And so I was, you have these moments as a teacher where you're never more proud of your students. When the students got together and said, we want our senior gift to be that we will raise the money to build a ramp to get from the upper school right to the cafeteria. We want to do this. And so when I talk about privilege is something that we really got to take seriously and use in a good, positive way to build an inclusive community, that's the thing that drives the work because I've seen it happen. And so now, when we have students who are in wheelchairs, for example, because they have torn ACLs, like one of our cheerleaders, or because they've been in a wreck and they're not able to get across the campus, I don't have to worry about them having to walk all the way around the building to only come back because we've taken the power that we had as people who could walk the steps and could walk the gravelly path to make sure that we have a ramp that now goes directly from the upper school into right up to the doors of our dining hall, if that makes any sense. Yes? Does everybody get that? And so thank you for allowing me to be a part of the work that you've done here today because you might not see it now. I can't say that I really was, all in it prior to having my experience with Lori, but it only takes that one time. And then you start to see it, and then you become really passionate about any time that I can do something to make it better, to make a student feel respected, to make a student feel more inclusive, to just make a student feel good about being at Greenhill or here at Cooper, then I want to take that opportunity. And it's been a thrill for me to see both you and your faculty engaging in that work here today. So thank you for that. And you deserve to clap because that's pretty awesome. So, to that point, we have a little bit of time just for some quick thoughts about questions that you might have or takeaways that you might have. We focus specifically and intentionally on looking at the Cooper community and what we could do within the Cooper community to make sure that it was the best Cooper community that it could be. But we certainly wanted to make room to at least acknowledge that this work is worldwide for us, right? That we're training here in this space to go out into the world to make the world better than the world that we currently have. And so I admire you for that, and I know that that's a part of it because nobody stays up and does as much homework as kids in independent schools do if you're not serious about making the world a better place. So with that, does anyone have any questions or comments or takeaways? Sometimes we do like aha moments, like, oh my gosh, I never realized that you're right. I'm right-handed. The world is made for me. I never thought about that. My best friend is left-handed. Just something for me to be aware of. Anyone? We can get the mic, yeah. We'll get the mic. I'll give out more Chick-fil-A tomorrow, even though you had bacon, and bacon dominates Chick-fil-A in my book, but. So, anyone? Yes, oh, here.
So, I was talking with some people at lunch, and I never realized that I'm kind of like a arts person, so I haven't really done sports in high school, but I didn't realize that some of the like fields and stuff aren't as good as the other ones. And I always thought that in my head, like everything was pristine because it's Cooper, but it's not always like that.
It's a process, right? Well, we talked about that in my group too. I mean, it's a process. And you know, I have to say as an administrator, because I get these all the time, I think the comment that I said earlier still stands, that sometimes the process is the product. We're really working today to just raise your level of awareness that there might be some difference, and to really come to a place of, is there something that I might be able to do to make that a little bit better for somebody else? Is that okay? Other thoughts or comments or questions? I see a hand is way in the back. I should put my glasses on.
We talked about pioneers, so those are people that have been through K and 12, and I didn't realize how people felt if they had been a couple years off for being a pioneer, and having to watch it every year happen, that the pioneers were acknowledged for staying at Cooper for so long.
Okay, good. And I think, I guess while we look for other hands, the thing that I'll say about that too is, this isn't about doing away with pioneers, right? It's just about being aware that, you know, what feels great for some people might not necessarily feel great for everybody. So this developing a sensitivity to that. Does that make sense? Yes? Other hands? I put my glasses on so I can see. Oh, I see. Oh, here's a hand. There it is.
Also to like fix, or not fix, but to just like suggest an idea. I know like the pioneers here have their program. Maybe the new students should have a program of their own to maybe like not even out, but kind of help new students feel more welcome.
Absolutely. So I know you have your student-to-student program, yes? So that is awesome. We talked a lot in the group that I was in about making sure that we meet with new students coming in and continually ask them what kind of support they need in terms of transitioning in, just as a practice with that group. So that's awesome. One more question? Yes, comment here. Yeah.
Something I've thought about a lot in the last 24 hours working with SDC and the Cooper community is how sometimes the most important part is just acknowledging privilege. You don't necessarily need to change things, and there can be change for the good, but sometimes it's just the most important part of the process is acknowledging that it's there and present in our community in all aspects of our lives.
I would agree. I think that goes a long way with people.
I think that something I took out of this today is just listening to all of the conversations I've been hearing after the presentation and after we met in groups, and just hearing how many things I think we as a student body have to say and how many observations we've made throughout our years here and things that we've seen that people might want to change. And I think that it's good just today that we've started those conversations, and I'm hopeful that we're taking things out of this that we can further make change in the school.
I think in all of this, it kind of comes down to the basics, that it's all about having an understanding of kind of everyone has their own deal. Everybody has their own problems, their issues, their strengths, their weaknesses. It's being understanding of that, but it's also having a mutual degree of respect. It all comes down to respect. So understanding your own privilege and understanding others, it's having a degree of respect for everyone, no matter who they are. I think that's through all of it. It's disrespecting someone, it's universal. It can come in any way or shape or form. If you have a mutual respect, it changes things completely. And I think that's what we should be working on at school. It's just having respect for each other. And that's a really big term, but there's a lot of people who, they don't respect what other people do all across society. But I think that just needs to change. It's just, being chill with who other people are. Like, that's them. Let them do them.
Sometimes we make it seem so difficult. And then at the end of the day, that's really what we're all about.
I find it amazing how a school can go to great lengths to support a student. And I feel, being a new student, I feel Cooper is always there for me, and I've come to realize that it's a wonderful thing coming from a public school. So, thank you.
That's awesome.
I think overall at Cooper, we have like a privilege of just being able to have like this amazing education that a lot of our peers that we know of don't really get to have. So that's like a privilege that we need to take like advantage of and respect that others don't have it, but at the same time take advantage of it and just enjoy having it because it's something that we all have, So it's something that, everything we have in common is that we have this privilege to go to this amazing school and have awesome facilities and amazing teachers and have peers that are, for the most part, respectful and nice people. So,
Yeah, we had that discussion in our group, right? Which is what makes this such a unique and great opportunity.
So in our group with TJ, we talked a little bit about, I think, did we all get the same incidents, like the same thing? Okay, so with incident 1, talking about how the privilege, how new students coming in trying to be officers of a club and not being able to. So we kind of had this idea, and we talked about how equality doesn't necessarily mean, and with that being related to privilege, equality doesn't necessarily mean all being treated the same, but being treated equal. So that also kind of goes with the, I guess earlier, like we talked about the seniors moving, like the seniors, we all are going to get a chance to have the senior privileges. But we're not seniors right now, so we don't have those privileges. Right. But even the freshmen will be sitting in front in like 4 years or whatever. Right.
The John Cooper School is a very, it's a very socially secure school in terms of where we can be safe being ourselves and understanding each other and having that connection because it's such a small community. And it's important to realize that outside of our school, it is a much larger world and it's not pretty. And the kind of things that we can accomplish within this fence, within the campus grounds, they're groundbreaking for the world because when we leave from this campus, just by being who we are and who we've learned to be and who we will become, that will set the new basis for how people will act in society, and we will be the ones to go out and blaze the new trail for those who really need the help and who really are looking for that light within a world who's broken.
So I see it, there's a hand up here. And so I'll say, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot, is that from the administration, from your teachers, from that point of view, the idea is that if we can create an inclusive community here, if we can provide that for you for 12 years or however long you're here, then you will know that it is possible. You will have been blessed to have lived it for however many years you've been in the Cooper community, and you will know, you will go out into the world and you'll know that you can create it because you've actually had the blessing of being able to experience it here. I know there's a hand. Yes, okay.
Okay, so I think privilege isn't necessarily a bad thing, like you said, but it has a tendency to make people think that they're superior to others, and I think that if we started looking more at what we had in common and what was different about us, that would probably help that and make it easier for people to like not feel superior.
And it's, at the end of the day, it's all about awareness, right? So at least we can all leave here and know we now have at least another lens to look at situations in. When I travel, like I said, in airports, that's never going to be the same for me again. You know, going from my office into the dining hall has never been the same since trying to figure out how's Lori going to do this, right? She's got enough on her plate without having to worry about, you know, walking a half of a mile around because that's the way our sidewalks are. So you never look at the world the same way again. I saw another hand. Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, after we, like, during lunch, everyone was talking, and I kind of understood, like, a lot of people were, like, talking how, or kind of complaining, like, okay, some sports get more recognition than others, and, like, oh, pioneers get more recognition than other people, and I kind of want to say, like, you can't, like what Jack said, that we have to really focus more on what we have in common, because overall, we all do different sports, we all have different interests, dislikes, and likes, and we tend to forget that we're all John Cooper, we're all a big family, and we're all a community. And I moved miles and miles to come here, and I'm really glad that my first year in Texas, I got to be like a Cooper dragon, you know? Like I have that feeling of I'm part of something, I'm part of a big, happy community. And maybe we're not always perfect, but we can't forget that we're all united, and we're all going to be here with each other for a very long time.
Excellent. Awesome way to end, unless somebody has a one more burning desire. But so, and I'll say mine, and then we'll let this be the end. I mean, I think you all have kind of captured the point of today, right? I love the word family. We tend to use the word family a lot because in families, no matter what happens, even if brothers and sisters fight, or mom and dad fight, or mom and daughter or son fight, at the end of the day, we all are a part of the same family. Is that a part? Oh, cool. Who has the microphone? Oh, bingo, okay.
I think that empathy is pretty important because we can't just recognize that people are different from us. We have to realize how those differences affect their life because that's just important to understanding them and trying to help them and trying to be inclusive of them.
Yeah. So, okay, perfect. So now really to end. I think, and I'll speak on behalf of SDC if they will let me, if we don't make time to have these conversations, to your point, then you will never know. And I would rather be in the know so that I can govern my behavior based on what I know about the people in my community than to not know, especially if something that I'm doing or saying is causing harm to someone who's in my family. Does that make sense? And so thank you for taking the time. I don't have any problem standing before you and saying Green Hill has not ever taken this much time in the upper school to have these types of conversations. And it's something that our students are so jealous about. They're like, why don't we do that? And I was like, you guys need to get together and you need to go make your, submit your petition. Because if we don't take the time to spend time getting to listen to each other and know each other, it's kind of hard to be inclusive if you don't really know the people who are in your community. So with that, there's a lot of Chick-fil-A that somebody's buying for a lot of people. It's not me, but see the people. And thank you so much for